Welcome to Charts Today. My name is David Linton, and this morning's edition for Tuesday the 29th of November comes to you from London. And we start by looking, as always, at the dollar index. The state of currencies has really been one of the most interesting things over the last several weeks, with all of the moves around the US election, and we've seen that we've really run on the dollar index. We've had this is our weekly charts, our daily charts, and our 60-minute charts, long, short, medium, and short term. So here we see that we've had all this action making new highs, probably just now hitting a resistance level where the dollar is just hitting some long-term resistance. This 102 level is a big sort of area where we just seem to be finding some resistance now, and we've pulled back below the cloud. That puts us bearish in the short term. That's in the coming days. So this week we shouldn't be surprised to see the dollar falling back a little bit. We do have a downside target on the short term 60-minute chart of 98.60. That's about 2.6% downside, but we need to move back below 100 and about 170 for 100.7 for that to actually be activated. We do have a shortage of clear upside targets now as well, although on the long-term chart we've got some very big upside targets, so US dollar strength will be a theme over the coming year. If we look at the euro, as we would expect, the inverse picture is true. We're bearish on the long term, bearish on the medium term, just turned bullish on the short term. Again, we have an upside target of about 3%. If we can get a move back above 106.7, 106.8, so once that target is activated, then we might go as high as 109 again. But we do have 101 and 1.04 hanging over us, and all these medium-term targets. And really, it wouldn't take much for the euro to be making new multi-year lows, and of course that would in turn activate some very big downside targets. So it's looking pretty scary for the euro longer term over the coming year. Japanese yen is a very good proxy for just seeing the risk on, risk off trade, and here we see the run in the dollar really showing through. Bearish. The dollar's still bearish against the dollar in the long term, but bullish in the medium, and just a bit bearish in the short term at the moment. We're seeing this little pullback here. So this is just confirming the dollar pulling back this week. If we look at sterling, sterling back below the clouds, so that's bearish, bearish on all time frames. We do have a few upside targets here, but downside targets. Sterling could go either way, but really testing this 124 level this morning, and really key here is can we make new lows, but this is now looking a bit bearish for sterling, so more bearish than the dollar, and that's showing through on the sterling chart where we're seeing euro just climbing a little bit here as well. So euro strength longer term, euro strength medium term versus sterling, but sterling just recovered a little bit, so quite key that. If we take a look at the Swiss franc, sterling Swiss, really much in a sideways trend around 126. So we are just starting to see slight improvement here in the medium term chart as we come through the cloud. We do have some upside targets to 128, 129, but of course in the longer term we still have some pretty scary targets near to parity. So looks like sterling is just putting in a little bit of a recovery there against the Swiss. And against the Aussie dollar, we're just seeing sterling 166 has been the recent low. We've been, of course, into the 150s, and we do have another downside target to 161. So Aussie dollar strength maybe just cropping through there. Taking a look at US stock markets. The S&P 500 did just close down a little bit last night, but held the 2200 mark. We've pulled back a little bit, but this is bullish on the short term, bullish on the medium term, and bullish on the long term. So we're still seeing upside potential. 2222 is the target, another 1% upside in the short term, and some pretty decent medium term targets, as much as 23%. So we really are seeing quite significant upside now to the US market, and we expect the US stock market to run next year based on the charts. Nasdaq looking pretty good as well. Now not quite making new highs yet, but still looking pretty good. Needs to break this 4900 level quite convincingly. We're at 4857, so we'll wait and see. We've got a slight move up in the futures this morning, but not that significant. FTSE really struggling. Here we see on the medium-term chart where the medium-term chart, we're just really coming back to find support in the cloud. We're still bullish in the long term, but the short-term picture is a very mixed one, really stuck between this 6750 and 6850 level. Downside target starting to rule here, so FTSE not looking so good. The FTSE 250, just much the same picture. So again, the UK market is not looking great. DAX, we're seeing that through the cloud on the short term. Downside targets, we do have support here, and no clear long-term downside targets, but just a very mixed picture. This 10750, 10800 level is really acting as resistance on the DAX, and we're struggling to get through. We're still actually bearish on the weekly chart with the lagging line below the cloud, so that's quite key as well. Take a look at the Nikkei. Nikkei still looking pretty bullish in the medium and long term. All this data coming to you from DTN IQ feed, by the way. And here we see the Brent price. Brent is bearish on the weekly, bearish on the daily, and just still bearish on the 60-minute chart. So I'm struggling to get through here on Brent at the moment. And if we look at WTI, much the same picture. No really clear downside targets unless we make new lows below $42. But at the moment we're stuck in the sort of 46, 47 range for both crude products. Nat gas, we said yesterday, was looking stronger, gone stronger still. We're still bearish on the weekly chart, but on the daily chart we're just trying to get back into bullish territory, and we are bullish on the 60-minute chart. And some pretty key upside targets on the short-term chart: $3.38, $3.53. We're starting to see nat gas looking a bit better, so that's quite key. If you look at some other charts, wheat bearish in the short term below the cloud. We've got a downside potential of 1.4%, bearish on all fronts there. Coffee has had a great run recently, but is still bearish in the short-term chart. But the medium and long-term chart starting to show some sign of transition. If we look to gold really struggling to get back above this 1200 level, but not much work now needed to get through the short-term 60-minute cloud and be bullish again from a technical perspective. 2% upside on the short-term targets, but we do see on the medium-term chart we're really just seeing gold bearish. On the long-term chart, right on support at the moment. So is this the place where gold can find some support and start to move up again? Keep an eye on those short-term charts and the targets there. Silver looking a little bit better. Silver tends to lead gold a little bit. We're through on the short-term chart, not on the medium term, but the short-term chart looking good. So maybe we'll just see a turnaround in precious metals. Taking a look at the 10-year government bond, the US interest rates, 2.34%. So we are seeing targets as high as 50% upside on these short-term moves, so really big. But those targets not showing through entirely on the long-term chart. The medium-term chart we're seeing similar. So interest rates on the 10-year back, yields back above 3.5%, so really significant. Of course, that could take quite a long time to play through, but those recent moves have now set us up for big moves, and we have crossed, for the first time in many, many years, we have crossed above the cloud, heading back to interest rate levels that we saw 3 and 4 years ago. Taking a look at a few US bellwethers, Apple still bearish below the cloud here, but just starting to make a transition in the long term. Google still just bearish below the cloud here as well. A lot of Nasdaq stocks just struggling to get into that bullish territory. Much the same picture with Amazon. That's bearish in the short term, just can't make it. Nvidia, one exception, still bullish on all fronts. Facebook, just above the cloud here, one of the better looking charts at the moment. Some really great long-term targets here in place, but recently we've just had quite a lot of chop as well. And Microsoft making multi-year highs, really marching up on the long-term chart, but we see the chop in the short term. So Nasdaq stocks still have some work to do in the short term before we can see the fully bullish picture there. That's it for today. Keep an eye on the dollar and the S&P 500 holding at that 2200 level. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.